Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Trackman 44 here. We're going to go ahead and see if whatever we can get out of this thing here. Now, what happened to me, unbeknownst to me, one of the things that happens to guys that make videos, one of the worst things to happen happens right here. I wasn't paying attention, my battery went dead, so you're going to see me jump ahead pretty far. What I'm doing, simply because this log was so odd shaped, you know, so large on one end and so pinched down and everything on the other end, I just went ahead and I'm using the first number of cuts just to make stack constrict. So we'll go ahead and flip this one more turn that into a cant, and then start taking us off some good woodworking material. Hey guys, let me tell you, I learned a valuable lesson with this particular cedar. Now, the oak log that I saw just before this, I'd put a brand new blade on. I don't know if I said it in the video. I don't even remember if I did a video on it actually. But literally about 6 feet down, 5-6 feet down, the very first pass, I cut a 16-penny nail into. Okay, well, brand new blade. You know, I'm not going to let that stop me. So I went ahead and sawed that entire oak with that blade, getting duller and duller. So when I went ahead and put the top part of this cedar tree, or the second log, on here to kind of square it up, I thought I'll just go ahead. This is a more brittle, softer wood essentially. It saws so much easier than oak. I'll just use that old blade and go ahead and square this into a cant. Then I'll go ahead and change, put a new blade on. Well, let me tell you, that cost me dearly because I learned the lesson that when that blade's dull, it's time to get it out of there and get you a replacement on as soon as you're sure the nail is out of the picture. No matter how tight you have your guides, no matter how perfect you have the saw head adjusted to the bed frame, if you're running an exceptionally dull blade like I was doing right there, what'll happen is your blade will dive, and it'll come out and it'll dive. I end up running probably 1.5 inches on this cant just by trying to saw with it too dull. I went ahead and put a new blade on, and I've been squaring this up, truing it up, getting rid of all the dives, the divots, and all that stuff. You can see, like right here, here's a perfect example. I was taking off just a little shave, 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch at a time, until I could shave down them side by side to where it's reasonably square again. Now, it's still not square. It's actually running just slightly in a parallelogram, but at least the sides are now flat from one end of the cant to the other, not square this way. But that's only going to result in a little bit, you know, off angle on the edge of the board, so that's not that big of a deal. And here you go, you can see how much material, and you can see probably the variance between up here. There's a 1/16 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch immediately, and by the time I get all the way to the tail end down here, well, here I'm up to 3/8 and back down to 1/4 and up to almost 1/2 inch over here to get that side squared off. That becomes kindling wood, so it's not totally wasted. And then here's the last one. As you can see, I went from 0 right here all the way up, and to square up the part that was going in and out with that waving blade, you can see the variations, you know, all the way the full length of this will cut. But say that's just kindling, it's not a big deal. You know, we'll use it in the wintertime. But now I've got 4 level planes. I'm going to go ahead and drop. I think these are 6 inches across here. Yeah, I've got like 6 3/8 inch across here. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop these 1x6s essentially off. Hopefully just a little bit quicker with this next brand spanking new blade, and I definitely learned my lesson. Now squaring it up, I ended up with a lot of material over there. It's a little bit wide, but I will rip that all down into stacking strips. And of course there's a nice thick one that will end up having to be planed down, you know, to use for project material. And then of course over here are 6 really good looking 8.5 foot 1x6s. They're actually a full 1 inch by 6 and almost a half. Now that we got done with that cant, you can take a look and you can see the pretty grain of what came out of that log. That goes to show you that something that's so nasty and so oddly shaped with all the branches and everything, the stubs sticking out, and also the odd dimension change from the big end to the small end, you can still net some pretty good material. Now this isn't a whole lot, but it's a whole lot better than all of it busted up into kindling. Like I said before, I think I remember saying it at some point, the big takeaway in my estimation is to not fall victim to the trap of trying to get a little more cut out of a blade that's already dull. If you have the slide type guides on the blade and not the roller guides on the blade, those slide type guides with the force, the downward force or the upward force of that blade as it dips and dives in the cant as you're trying to saw it, put so much pressure on those guides that they'll literally push those guides so far out of adjustment it's just not even funny. And once you get beyond that adjustment, then the blade is much more freely able to make those dips and dives. So like I said, once your blade gets dull, like after you hit a nail, it ain't worth that time and aggravation, because it obviously cost me 1.5 inches of material off of off of each side, you know, to get it squared back up. I had to take it from a parallelogram back to a square, and I actually had to take the dips and dives back to a level plane. So, you know, lesson learned. I'm by no means an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but as an amateur, a learning amateur to other amateurs that are going to be dealing with this issue, learn from my mistakes. So you know what? The bad thing about sawing lumber is having to stack it and keep it stored in the dry. So I'm going to go back to business of doing that, and this is Tractor Man 44, and I'm out of here, guys.